Hello friends, so yesterday I got a video request and this person said I would love for you to show how to set up Visual Studio Code like you do in your videos. And I think this is the third or fourth time that somebody is asking about my VS Code setup, my theme, or how I configure my terminal. So I thought, yeah, why not make a video sharing all of that. So in this video I'll be showing how I set up my VS Code editor for my videos. I'll be talking about how I set up the project, some of the shortcuts that I use, how I customize some of my keyboard shortcuts, and some extensions that I use a lot, extensions that I cannot do without, especially when making videos, the themes that I have for my VS Code editor, how I configure the terminal and make it look nice and stuff. And lastly, I'll talk about a new platform I just discovered for drawing illustrations in my videos. So I want to start off by saying that I use a MacBook, but VS Code also works on Windows. So whatever I show you in this video should also work if you are using a Windows. Now moving on, I have a test project. This is the project here. I have a bunch of files. If I want to make videos on React, I can come to this app.js here. If I need to make a video on HTML, I have some HTML files here. I have test.html, test2.html. If I need to make a video on CSS, I also have test.css, test2.css. Although one thing I started doing recently was, if I go to test.html, you can see I have styles here. So what I started doing recently was, instead of having the CSS in another file, I put it in the same HTML file. But if the CSS is long, then I'll have a different CSS file. If I need to make a video on JavaScript, I have test3.js, test2.js, and I can even create a test4.js or test5.js if I need to. I also started making videos on Python recently, so you can see I have a test.py. So this is the test project that I use for my videos when talking about different programming languages. Next up is zooming in and zooming out. Whenever I'm making videos, I try to zoom in, as you probably noticed. So I would zoom in so that you can see what is happening, and I would also close this editor here. The shortcut for that is Command B, and then you have a full view of what I am talking about. Another thing is shortcuts. I use shortcuts a lot. I cannot do without shortcuts. In fact, for some things, I don't even remember the original way of doing it because I'm now so used to the shortcuts. Some of the shortcuts that I use a lot is, let's say I want to duplicate this line to the next line. I can hold Shift Option down and it will duplicate that line, and I can duplicate it. I can also do Shift Option up and it will duplicate it to the top. Another VS Code tip I use is putting my cursors at multiple places. So by holding Option, which on Windows will be Alt, I can put my cursor here, hold it, put here, put here, put here, put here, and I can type on the different places that the cursor currently is. Another shortcut that I cannot do without, especially in my videos, is if I want to comment a line of code, I can just go to that line, Command /, and it would apply the right comment for that line. So this is a CSS block, so it applies this. If I go to test.js and I come here and I do Command /, it will apply // because that's the syntax for comments in JavaScript. If I go to this Python file and I do Command /, you can see it applies a hash here because that is the syntax for comments in Python. I use shortcuts and VS Code tips a lot, and in fact I even have some videos where I've shared 10 tips that can improve your VS Code experience. I'll link it in the video description below so you can check it out. Extensions. Two extensions that I use a lot are Prettier and Live Server. For Prettier, this gives me a good code formatting. So let's say in this test.html, I add a margin of 50 pixels and then I put a space and I forgot to clean the space, and maybe I want to declare another class. You can see here I don't have any proper indentation. Container should start from here, but instead I start from here. Now when I'm making my videos, I don't have to worry about all of this formatting. I can simply right click and go to Format Document. If I go to Format Document Width, you can see that Prettier is the default. So if I click on Format Document, it would format it with Prettier, but because I like using shortcuts, I don't have to right click and come here. I can just do Command Shift I. You've probably even noticed this in my videos. I could just be typing something and then I do Command Shift I and everything just adjusts like magic. Well, it's because I formatted it with Prettier. I also have a configuration file here. So in this configuration file, I'm able to tell Prettier how I want it to configure my file. I like using a tab width of 2. Another thing I play with is the print width. So if I'm working on a vertical screen, I want to ensure that everything shows in that vertical screen. I will put my print width as 45. That way I know it's going to format in the width of 45. So at least all of these things should be visible. But if I'm working on a horizontal screen, I can put my print width as 60. Watch how this text becomes longer. If I do Command-Shift-I, you can see this text now becomes longer because the print width is now wide enough. The second extension I use a lot is Live Server. So this extension allows me to launch a development local server and I can view my changes. And I use this a lot when working with HTML or CSS or JavaScript files. For example, I have this HTML file and I want to show you what the file looks like. I can do Command-Shift-P, which opens my command dialog. And as you can see, one of my recently used command is Live Server, open with Live Server. I use this almost all the time. So if I click on this, it will open my changes in a live server. I think I was talking about the CSS tip here. So if I come here and I change this to 4 and I put overflow hidden, you can see. So this way I'm able to show what exactly I'm doing in HTML or CSS. Themes. People ask me a lot about my themes. So for themes, I can open my themes using Command K, Command T. These are all the themes that I have installed. Currently, the one I have active is OneDark Pro, and this is what I use most of the time. But some of my other favorite extensions are Night Owl. Another favorite extension is Synthwave. I use Synthwave a lot also, but recently I started enjoying OneDark Pro. And if I need a light theme version, I actually go for this GitHub version. Another thing with themes is I have this extension called VS Code Icons. Sorry, let me change my theme to my favorite, OneDark Pro. So I have this theme called VS Code Icons, and what this theme does is if we go to the files I have here, you can see that this JavaScript file has this JavaScript icon here. Let me zoom in. You can see it has this JavaScript icon here. This Python file has the Python logo. This Markdown file has this Markdown icon. So it allows me to easily differentiate the files that I have. The terminal. I use the terminal a lot in my videos too, maybe when working with Python project or JavaScript project. To open the terminal, I use Control backtick. And let's say I have a JavaScript file and let's just say I do console.log Deeecode. I can use my terminal here to run this file and I get Deeecode. So instead of having to switch between my VS Code editor and my terminal to do whatever I need to do, I can just use the integrated terminal here. When I'm working on horizontal videos like this, I would usually have the file I am editing on the left and I would have the terminal on the right. But if I'm working on vertical videos and I want to show the terminal, another thing I love about the VS Code terminal is that I can drag this to anywhere I want, but I usually drag it to the bottom here. So this way I have the JavaScript file or the Python file here, and then I have the terminal here, and then in a vertical screen you can see the code and the terminal at once. Now another thing people ask me a lot is how do I configure my terminal to be nice? For example, if I go to my Deeecode website project, by the way, you can find my website on deeecode.com. So if I come here and I do git start tools, you can see I have all of this colored stuff here. You can see the project name, you can see git, you can see the branch I'm currently on, which is the main branch. And in that case, I use omyzsh. So if you go to omyz.sh, you can install it and you can use the different themes that they have. This is the theme I'm currently using. But if we go to the themes section, you can see a couple of themes and you can configure your terminal to also, use omyzsh. Customizing shortcuts. So I mentioned before that I use shortcuts a lot, but I can also configure my shortcuts. If I go to preferences and I go to keyboard shortcuts, I have a bunch of these key bindings and some of them I left as default. I love them as default, but there are a few of them that I changed for my own needs. One of them that I changed is if I want to close the other files and leave the current file, I can do Command K and Command semicolon. So let's say I open test.js and I do Command K, Command semicolon. You can see that all the files that were here before removed and only this one is here. But you can actually come here and change your keyboard shortcuts and make your life faster. So these are mostly the VS Code stuff that I do for my videos. But one more tool I want to talk about is Excellidraw, which is this. I recently discovered this platform and it allows me to draw illustrations or diagrams to explain my points. And I found found this really useful. The last video I made was talking about the stack memory and heap memory in JavaScript, and I really used this to illustrate what I was explaining, and a lot of people also found the diagrams useful. Before this platform, I know I would usually use Figma to draw my diagrams. I use Figma for my covers, as you can see also. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this shows you some things you probably didn't know about VS Code. Like I mentioned earlier, I have some videos where I shared VS Code tips. I have part 1 and part 2, which you can check out after this video. These tips can greatly improve your development experience in VS Code. I hope you found this video helpful. Please give it a like, share, and subscribe for more simplified videos I make on coding.